All right, so let's talk about problem set B here. So you're given information about two functions in the problem. One of them, g, which is this chart here, and its derivative values are here. And the other is f, which is this graph here. And you're asked problems that involve g and f. So we're going to walk through these. So problem number 1 says, we have k of x is f of g of x, and we want to find k prime of 1. So the first thing we have to do is find k prime of x. So this is a composition of functions, so it's the chain rule. So the derivative of that would be f prime of g of x times g prime of x. That's what the chain rule says. Now we want to find k prime of 1. So for all the x's, we're going to replace those with 1. And then we're going to look at our respective information about the graphs to figure out what this value is. So g prime of 1 comes from the graph. So we have the g prime column here of 1 would be negative 10. And then g of 1 would be negative 2. So I'm going to replace the g of 1 with negative 2 and the g prime of 1 with negative 10. So now I need to find f prime of negative 2. So if I look at the graph of f, and I look at the x value of 2, point right here, f prime says, I want to know what the slope is there. So they tell you in the problem that this is basically a linear part of a graph here. So they're asking for the slope of the part of the line that passes through negative 2. And you can tell that that is negative 1. So f prime of negative 2, which is the slope at x value of negative 2, is negative 1. So the answer to number 1 is 10. So looking at number 2, now we have this function p of x. We want to take its derivative, and it is the inverse function of g. So since we're told that this is an inverse function, we're going to use that formula that we used to take the derivative, which is 1 over g prime of g inverse of x. And we wanted to find the equation of the tangent line, which requires us to find the slope and the value of the point at x equals 4. All right, so p of 4, which would give me the point, would be g inverse of 4. So to find g inverse of 4, we look at the graph of g, but instead of looking at an x value and getting back a y, we're inverting it. So we plug in 4 for the y in this column, so we find where the y is, and then we want the corresponding x back. So that's going to be 2. So p of 4 is 2. So my point then is 4, 2. Now p prime of 4, we're going to use the derivative that we just wrote over there to the left, g prime of g inverse of 4. We just found g inverse of 4 when we did the point. So this is going to be 1 over g prime of 2. And we look back at the chart. Here's g prime. Here's 2. Here's the slope. It's 7. So that will be 1 over 7. So now I know a point. I know a slope. I can write the equation of the line. And that's part B. So now the part C. Another function. This time we're given that j is f of 2x times g of 2x. So when we find j prime, that's going to require product rule first. So first times the derivative of this, which has a function inside of a function. So that's going to be the chain rule, plus second times the derivative of the first, which again is going to be the chain rule. So for this one, the outside would be g of x, and the inside would be 2x. So the derivative is g prime, the derivative of 2x is 2. So when I take this derivative, let me move this up a little bit so it's easier to see. This part, got the f of 2x here, and then this part would be 2x plugged into g prime times the derivative of 2x, which is 2. And I could do the same chain rule over here, but it's basically going to, oops, sorry, that is a 2x on an x. But it's basically going to end up looking like the exact same work, but this time with f. So that's j prime. So now I can find j prime of negative 1/2. So I'm going to write that down here. J prime of negative 1/2 is f of 2 times negative 1/2, g of 2 times negative 1/2 times 2, plus g of 2 times negative 1/2, f prime, oops, I left out a prime right there. There we go. Times f prime of 2 times negative 1/2 times 2. And now I'm going to plug in everything using my chart and my graph. So f of negative 1 means I want the y value on the graph of f when x is negative 1. So that clearly is negative 1. G prime of negative 1, go to the g prime column, negative 1 is 3 times 2 plus g of negative 1, so I go to g, negative 1, that's 6. F prime of negative 1, again, is that slope where x is negative 1, and the slope of that line right there is negative 1 times 2. And so this is negative 6 minus 12, so negative 18. Now, final problem. We've got m of x, and that's g of x divided by cosine. I could use quotient rule here, or I can convert it to product rule. I'm going to go ahead and do quotient. So low d high minus high d low all over low low. And then I plug in 0 for all the x's. So let's see, grab my prime. Prime of 0 is, so cosine of 0 is 1. G prime of 0, again, go back to the chart. G prime of 0 is 6. Plus g of 0, which is negative 4. Sine of 0, which is 0, over cosine of 0, which is 1 squared. And so I think if you do all that out, that gives you 6. That's the final answer.